Hello and welcome to this virtual presentation entitled Facilitating Classroom Questioning and Participation Through Smart Handheld Technologies. My name is Hatziapostolou and I am a senior lecturer in the Computer Science Department of the University of Sheffield International Faculty, City College in Thessaloniki, Greece. In this presentation, I will present eWONDER, an innovative educational tool that can be used in a classroom setting. I will begin by introducing the tool and then discuss the pedagogical considerations behind its creation. I will also explain a high-level view of the usage of eWONDER and briefly present the architecture and technologies that were used for its design and development. Finally, I will conclude this presentation by discussing an evaluation of the system and future enhancements. eWONDER is an educational tool. It was designed and developed with the aim of facilitating student engagement in a classroom setting and more specifically classroom participation. The current dominant handheld technology that can greatly enhance this particular aspect of learner engagement is a student response system, or more commonly known as a clicker. Clickers are handheld devices that can enhance classroom participation by allowing students to anonymously answer the instructor's questions. However, student engagement and classroom participation does not only involve answering questions, but also asking questions, a situation which, as we will see later, is not quite common in a classroom setting. Therefore, the aim of eWONDER is to facilitate active participation by enabling learners to anonymously ask questions to the instructor in real time by typing them in a smart handheld device. This slide discusses the pedagogical considerations behind the creation of eWONDER. Education is not about a monologue from an instructor and the passive reception of information by learners. It is about a dialogue between learner and instructor. As a result, students' questions during a class are critical to learning since they create active engagement in the learning process. While most instructors encourage and welcome questions, it is not quite common in a classroom setting. One reason might be that such lectures aren't really designed for questions. The instructor has an agenda that has to be squeezed into a limited amount of time. Furthermore, as the number of students in a classroom increase, opportunities for interaction seem to decrease, since it is practically infeasible for 100 students to each ask a question during a 50-minute lecture. Nonetheless, there are also a number of psychological, social, and cultural reasons as to why students hesitate to ask questions during a lecture, even if the classroom setting permits it. The most common ones are the following: fear that the instructor will label the student as incapable, afraid that they will be embarrassed in the eyes of their classmates or the instructor, concerned of wasting the time of the class, and last but not least, students might also be hesitant to talk because of their accent. Lastly, it is important to mention that class size compounds and amplifies these feelings and reactions, since the larger the class, the less students participate. A question that arises is, how can we best facilitate classroom participation and questioning? What technology can best assist learners who are reluctant to raise their hand and ask a question? We strongly believe that an effective and efficient solution is a system that is based on mobile technologies, and there are actually many reasons for this. First of all, it cannot be argued that using portable, handheld devices such as smartphones, PDAs, and tablets is becoming a norm in our daily lives. Such a trend cannot be ignored in an education setting, especially when the number of students who own an internet-capable handheld device and use it to frequently access the internet is growing rapidly. Academic institutions and educators have realized not only that there is a need to bridge the gap between the way students live and the way they learn, but also that the use of mobile devices on campus can actually enrich the learning experience. eWONDER was designed and developed having these trends in mind. eWONDER is a sophisticated system that consists of a number of modules. Nevertheless, the users of the system directly interact with the following four major components. First, the student application, which is installed on a smart handheld device. The student application contains all the required functionality in order to allow students to anonymously type and send questions to the instructor during a lecture. The second major component is the instructor application, which is also installed on a smart handheld device. This application is used by instructors to browse the students' questions and optionally record audio of their answers. The third major component is the notification application. This specific part of eWONDER operates as a notifier and informs the instructor that a question has been received. This application is installed and used on any computer, desktop or laptop that the classroom is equipped with for projections of presentations. Last but not least, eWONDER includes a web application. The web application enables instructors to set up a lecture session and students to later browse questions and instructors' responses. Let's examine the high-level flow of events in using eWONDER. The first thing that needs to happen is for an instructor to use the web application in order to create an event. The term event implies anything that can have an audience, like a lecture, a seminar, or a tutorial. The initialization of an event generates a unique enrollment key. This key can be announced to the audience, the students, when the event starts or via email. When the event starts, a student in the audience who has already downloaded and installed eWONDER on a smart handheld device can enter the enrollment key in order to log in into the event. After a successful initialization, a student can use the smart handheld device to type and send questions to the instructor. A question is sent anonymous, which means that the lecturer does not know who was the student who sent the question. Students cannot see questions posted by other students either. When a question is received, the instructor is notified through the notification application. At this point, it is important to mention that incoming questions are clustered by keywords. This allows the instructor to determine the taught topics that students are experiencing problems, but also to identify related or similar questions. In order to view students' questions, the instructor also uses a smart handheld device. A question is then selected and answered in class. The answer that the instructor provides may be recorded. When this option is selected, the text of the question along with the answer's audio file are stored and can later be accessed through eWONDER's web application. This enables the creation of a library of questions and answers. As it can be seen, the high-level process of using the system is quite straightforward, even though there are a lot of parameters to the functionality offered by eWONDER. The architecture of eWONDER is based on the client-server model, and the network connection is required for the operation of the system. This, however, does not impose any difficulties, since current handheld devices are equipped with adapters for easy access to wireless networks, which are freely offered by academic institutions. The figure in this slide depicts the high-level architecture. As it can be seen, at the heart of eWONDER is a web service which allows the communication between the various handheld devices. Each of the components of eWONDER pertains at a certain layer in the overall design of the system. The presentation layer includes the components that present functionality and directly interact with users. It defines the user interface elements that are possible in each component and is application dependent. The logic layer defines the functionality and is also application dependent. It controls the whole application logic, and all requests and responses need to pass through this layer. Finally, the storage layer is responsible for physical storage of all content and metadata. eWONDER was developed through a diverse set of technologies such as RESTful XML, C#, Cocoa Touch, TouchXML, HTML5 and others. It currently supports the Apple's iOS operating system and can be used on Apple's own devices such as the iPhone family, tablets like iPad, and portable music players like iPod Touch. At the moment, eWONDER is fully functional with the exception of question clustering and the ability to record the answers of the lecturers, which are currently at the final stages of development. The system needs to be evaluated in an actual classroom setting in order to assess its educational value. However, before such a large-scale evaluation is conducted, a validation study was required in order to identify possible usability issues as well as to determine major system errors. eWONDER was validated by performing the heuristic evaluation usability engineering method. The evaluation was conducted by 5 evaluators who were selected based on their experience in software usability. More specifically, 2 of the evaluators were experts in software usability and user interface design. They tested all the tasks offered to both lecturers and students. The remaining 3 evaluators were students with no knowledge of software ergonomics and conducted tests for the functionality offered to students. Each evaluator performed the system tasks individually but met as a group at the end to aggregate the outcomes. The reported results revealed no system errors and minor usability problems, which will be solved at the next version of eWONDER. Summing up this presentation, we can say that we know that asking questions is an important part of the learning process, especially in a classroom environment where so much new information is presented in 50 minutes. Despite this fact, though, questions from students during a class is not a very common activity for a number of reasons. We believe that technology can assist in engaging students in participating in the classroom, and due to the penetration of smart handheld devices, we believe that a mobile system will be effective and efficient for this kind of task. Within this context, we created eWONDER. It is a sophisticated mobile educational tool that facilitates active participation and promotes learning by enabling learners to anonymously send text-based questions to the instructor in real time using a smart handheld device. eWONDER is currently in its first release, and most key functionality has been thoroughly tested. In addition to the heuristic evaluation which was conducted, we plan to perform a large-scale evaluation in an actual classroom setting in order to measure its effectiveness both in terms of pedagogy as well as acceptance level by students. Based on the results of this evaluation, we will also proceed in providing support for additional mobile platforms such as Android. Thank you very much for watching this virtual presentation. If you have any questions, we would be more than happy to answer them through email.